All right, we're going to take a look here at review number 5. Some things you're going to notice we're seeing over again like we did before, but again, it never hurts to see things a couple of times when we're trying to remember them. So up here at the top, again, we're looking at solving inequalities, writing answers in interval notation. This time I'm going to jump over to number 2. Now, we've talked before about whenever you see absolute value, whether it's an equation, whether it's an inequality, that you need to have 2 expressions. So I just copy it down the first time, and then the second time I'm going to do 2 things to change it. I'm going to flip the arrow, and I'm going to change the sign of my solution. And once I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and solve each one. We'll do the same over here. Now, I can't be quite finished even though I have both of those solutions. It says write my answer in interval notation. When I do that, I usually will just take a quick moment to make myself a picture. So I'll look and I'll say, okay, n is less than 10. Again, I know that because the arrow's pointing at n. So less than is going to be going to the left. And then I look at my other one, n is greater than, arrow's eating, n means greater than 4. They come together in the middle. So my interval notation is just going from left, starting at 4, to right, ending at 10. And I'm set. When we get up to 3 and 4, identify the vertex and axis of symmetry and sketch the graph. Okay. When I'm dealing with any of these, again, my vertex, the x value is negative b over 2a. Okay, and then I plug that back in to find y. So here my a value would be 1, my b value would be 4. So my x would be negative 4 over 2 times 1. So negative 4 over 2 is negative 2. And then to find y, I'm just going to plug in that negative 2 everywhere that there's an x. It replaces the x. And I want to use parentheses so I don't run into sign issues later. So I can punch this into the calculator, or I could do it individually, just kind of working it out in my head. So 4 minus 8 is negative 4, plus 6 is 2. So my vertex is at negative 2, positive 2. And as soon as I know this vertex, I know the axis of symmetry because it's just the x value of my vertex. Okay, so I've got that part right away. And then, of course, I would use my slope, quote unquote, to figure this out. But if that's not something you're comfortable with, and we'll talk about how I could use slope to graph some of this as well. I can go ahead, type this in the calculator, look at my chart. Now again, I need to get my chart where this is in the middle of it, so I see the symmetry. Once I do that, I'll go ahead, I'll plot the other points that I think I can fit on here. Let me do those. And then I would just connect the dots. Now, some of you may have been wondering back a moment ago when I talked about slope, with air quotes, what I meant. Well, we talked a little before when we were graphing these, that there's a pattern that goes with these where I can go up 1 over 1, up 3 over 1, and so on to get my points. And if there's a different number in front, I just times it by that. So, again, whether you use the chart, and you'd need to know your vertex to do that anyway, or you use the slope, either one works perfectly fine for these. Okay? So move a little further down. So as we move down a little bit further, and we're asked to identify the vertex, focus, and directrix of each. Let me put you at ease on one thing. When you're on the final and dealing with focus and directrix, the formulas themselves will be on here. And this is just a reminder, we did that green sheet back when we were working in Unit 2 on this. So if you still have another green sheet besides your factoring one, that's a place you could find it, as well as what we've talked about before with our searches. But for now, okay, if I'm looking for my vertex, it's HK. Now again, it's the opposite of what I see in the parentheses. And then I keep whatever's on the outside. That should be the easy part. Once I get through that to find the focus and directrix, okay, I already know that my H is -3, that my K is 7, and then I just go through and I'm going to fill those in here. So for my focus, I'm going to have -3, 7 plus 1 divided by 4 times -1/2. Now, here's the part right here that we're going to get ourselves in trouble into here. So let's take a peek at the calculator here and see if we can keep ourselves from getting in trouble. All I want you to do when you're breaking this down is deal with the denominator first. So I'm going to do 4 times -1/2. Okay, I want you to do that first, which is -2. Then I can look and say, oh, so it's 1 divided by -2. Then I can do 7 plus -0.5. Okay? So my focus is -3, 6.5. You're like, well, why can't I just type it all in at once? Okay, let's try it. 7 plus 1 divided by 4 times -1/2. Oh, doesn't come out the same. You're right. So again, when you're doing these, part 1, then do 1 divided by that to get the fraction, and then do 7 plus or whatever it happens to be when you're trying to crank those out. So that's my focus. And then my directrix is y equals k minus 1 over 4a. So it gives us another chance to try this again with the calculator. So again, only do the denominator first. 4 times -1/2 is -2. So now I'm going to do 1 divided by -2, get my answer. And then I got to be careful because I'm doing 7 minus that, so I've got to do the -0.5. And I get my answer of y equals 7.5. And I get all 3 of them that way. And that's how these work. Now again, I'm going to do one more of these because these are a little bit crazier. So let's come down to 7. Okay, so I get down to 7 and I go, all right, my vertex, opposite, keep it. My directrix and my focus, again, my focus, it's my H value, and then my K plus 1 over 4 times A. Just a reminder again, denominator first, then 1 divided by my answer I got, and then 6 plus the answer I got. -6, 5.875. And then my directrix, y equals, here's my h and my k, k minus 1 over 4, and my a value is that number in front. Same thing. 4 times -2. Then I do 1 divided by that answer. Then I do 6 minus that last answer. And I'm set. Okay? But like I said, the formulas for focus and directrix will be right on the exam, so it's not something that you have to memorize. You just got to be able to plug in the numbers and work with it. Okay? So, as we head to the back, okay, more factoring. I am going to jump in on one of these. Okay, I'm going to jump in on number 10, because we've already done some factoring stuff. I'm not going to go crazy with these every time. But when we have 4 terms, we're going to pair them off, just like it says to do on the green sheet. Then we're going to take the greatest common factor of each out. In other words, what's the biggest number I can take out, and what's the smallest exponent I can take out if we have a variable in common. So 24 and 40. Now maybe I don't know what the biggest number that goes into 24 and 40 is. So here is yet another use for our handy dandy little sheet here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to try to find columns where 24 and 40 are both in. So like, okay, here, I see 24 and 40 are both here. So 4 goes into them. But is there a better option? Okay, there's 24. No. Oh, wait, 24 and 40. Okay, 8 goes in, so that's a little bit bigger. So that helps me out more. So I take out an 8. My smallest exponent is r squared. And then it just becomes 8 times what's 24? 3. I got 2 r's, I need to get to 3. 8 times what's negative 40? I already got my r squared. Now remember, when I do the second one, I better get the same thing. You're like, oh, well that is the same thing. Okay, good. Now just write down 3r minus 5, and I'll go about my business. But wait, you always have to pull something out. If nothing else pulls out, I always got to take a 1. So then to make my answer, I just write down my greatest common factors. I write those down and I'm set. Okay. As we keep moving down here, because again the factoring will show up again, so we'll probably hit that again later. Name the transformations. Name the shifts that happen. Okay, we'll take a look at a couple of these. Actually, let's do 13 and 16. When we're looking at these, this up, down, left, right thing, here's my left and my right. Going to be inside the absolute value. And my up and down are going to be outside. Oops, I'll move that down a little bit. So I look at this and I say, okay, this is outside, it's negative. That's down 3. But let's say I'm looking at 15. I'm like, okay, well that's inside and it's positive, so that's left. So left 2, up 2, and that negative means it reflects or it flips. And I got to remember that part. Okay, it doesn't mean it's moving up or down, it just means it flips the graph over. And then as we get towards the bottom, again, we've done the stuff with the absolute value equations, but I will sneak one of these in. Okay, again, my first job is always to isolate my absolute value. So to do that, then once I've done this, like we did on the inequality on the other side, you copy what you see for the first one. And for the second one, I never change what's inside the bars, just what's outside. So I just change it to a negative. Add my 4, and I'm good. Add my 4, and I'm good. And that will do it for our review on Review 5.